The first human inhabitants of the Japanese archipelago have been traced to the Paleolithic, around 40,000 years ago. The Jomon period, named after its cord-marked pottery, was followed by the Yayoi period in the first millennium when new inventions were introduced from Asia. During this period, the first known written reference to Japan was recorded in the Chinese Book of Han. Around the 3rd century BC, the Yayoi people from the continent immigrated to the Japanese archipelago and introduced iron technology and agricultural civilization. The population of the Yayoi began to grow rapidly and ultimately overwhelmed the Jomon people, natives of the Japanese archipelago who lived as hunter-gatherers. Between the 4th and 9th centuries, Japan's many kingdoms and tribes gradually came to be unified under a centralized government, nominally controlled by the Emperor of Japan. The imperial dynasty established at this time continues to this day, albeit in an almost entirely ceremonial role. In 794, a new imperial capital was established at Heian-kyo, modern Kyoto, marking the beginning of the Heian period, which lasted until 1185. The Heian period is considered a golden age of classical Japanese culture. Japanese religious life from this time and onwards was a mix of native Shinto practices and Buddhism. Buddhism has been practiced in Japan since about the 6th century. Japanese Buddhism has had a major influence on Japanese society and culture and remains an influential aspect to this day. Japanese Zen refers to the Japanese forms of Zen Buddhism, an originally Chinese Mahayana school of Buddhism that strongly emphasizes dhyana, the meditative training of awareness and equanimity. This practice, according to Zen proponents, gives insight into one's true nature, or the emptiness of inherent existence, which opens the way to a liberated way of living. Major military efforts were taken by Kublai Khan of the Yuan dynasty in 1274 and 1281 to conquer the Japanese archipelago after the submission of the Korean kingdom of Goryeo to vassaldom. Ultimately a failure, the invasion attempts are of macro-historical importance because they set a limit on Mongol expansion and rank as nation-defining events in the history of Japan. Over the following centuries, the power of the imperial house decreased, passing first to great clans of civilian aristocrats and then to the military clans and their armies of samurai. Samurai were the hereditary military nobility of medieval Japan from the late 12th century until their abolition in the late 1870s during the Meiji era. They were the well-paid retainers of the daimyo, the great feudal landholders. The samurai enjoyed high prestige and special privileges. Following the passing of a law in 1629, samurai on official duty were required to practice daisho, the wearing of two swords. Samurai were granted kiri-suit gomen, the right to kill anyone of a lower class in certain situations. The Minamoto clan under Minamoto no Yoritomo emerged victorious from the Genpei War of 1180 to 1185, defeating their rival military clan, the Taira. After seizing power, Yoritomo set up his capital in Kamakura and took the title of shogun. In 1274 and 1281, the Kamakura shogunate withstood two Mongol invasions, but in 1333 it was toppled by a rival claimant to the shogunate, ushering in the Muromachi period. During this period, regional warlords called daimyo grew in power at the expense of the shogun. Eventually, Japan descended into a period of civil war. Over the course of the late 16th century, Japan was reunified under the leadership of the prominent daimyo Oda Nobunaga and his successor, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. After Toyotomi's death in 1598, Tokugawa Ieyasu came to power and was appointed shogun by the emperor. The Tokugawa shogunate, which governed from Edo, modern Tokyo, presided over a prosperous and peaceful era known as the Edo period 1600 to 1868. The Tokugawa shogunate imposed a strict class system on Japanese society and cut off almost all contact with the outside world. Portugal and Japan came into contact in 1543, when the Portuguese became the first Europeans to reach Japan by landing in the southern archipelago. They had a significant impact on Japan, even in this initial limited interaction, introducing firearms to Japanese warfare. Geisha are a class of female Japanese performing artists and entertainers trained in traditional Japanese performing art styles, such as dance, music, and singing, as well as being proficient conversationalists and hosts. Their distinct appearance is characterized by long, trailing kimono, traditional hairstyles, and ashiroi makeup. Geisha entertain at parties known as azushiki, often for the entertainment of wealthy clientele, as well as performing on stage and at festivals. Sumo is a form of competitive full-contact wrestling where a rikishi wrestler attempts to force his opponent out of a circular ring or into touching the ground with any body part other than the soles of his feet, usually by throwing, shoving, or pushing him down. Sumo originated in Japan, the only country where it is practiced professionally and where it is considered the national sport. It is considered a gendai budo, which refers to modern Japanese martial arts, but the sport has a history spanning many centuries. Many ancient traditions have been preserved in sumo, and even today the sport includes many ritual elements, such as the use of salt purification from Shinto. The American Perry expedition in 1853 more completely ended Japan's seclusion. This contributed to the fall of the shogunate and the return of power to the emperor during the Boshin War in 1868. The new national leadership of the following Meiji period transformed the isolated feudal island country into an empire that closely followed Western models and became a great power. Although democracy developed and modern civilian culture prospered during the Taisho period, 1912 to 1926, Japan's powerful military had great autonomy and overruled Japan's civilian leaders. The Japanese military invaded Manchuria in 1931, and from 1937 the conflict escalated into a prolonged war with China. Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 led to war with the United States and its allies. Japan's forces soon became overextended, but the military held out in spite of Allied air attacks that inflicted severe damage on population centers. Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender on August 15, 1945, following the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the Soviet invasion of Manchuria. The Allies occupied Japan until 1952, during which a new constitution was enacted in 1947 that transformed Japan into a constitutional monarchy. After 1955, Japan enjoyed very high economic growth and became a world economic powerhouse.